The arena was massive, stretching wider than any human stadium, its walls lined with banners from 100 alien worlds. The peacekeepers had built it as a place of training and celebration, where warriors could test their strength in front of the galaxy. Today, the stands were filled with soldiers, leaders, and civilians who had come to watch the opening event, the friendly duel. The duel was supposed to be a game, a display of honor, not real war. Each species would send a fighter into the arena. No weapons of mass destruction, no killing, only skill, speed, and courage. The aliens called it a test of unity. But everyone in the crowd knew it was also a chance to show superiority. Every species wanted to prove that their warriors were stronger than the rest. From the shadows of the entrance tunnel, the human walked forward. His boots echoed softly on the stone floor. He was tall but not the biggest in the arena. Compared to the armored giants and scaled creatures standing nearby, he looked almost plain. No shining armor, no glowing weapons, just simple training clothes and steady eyes. The audience reacted the same way they always did when a human appeared in a contest like this. They laughed. Fragile, slow, weak, one alien hissed, its 4 eyes blinking in amusement. Another, a reptilian peacekeeper, smirked and said, "Why would they even send a death welder? They break too easily." The whispers spread through the crowd, reaching every corner of the arena. To most of the galaxy, humans were still a mystery. They came from a planet the aliens called a death world, a place of endless storms, dangerous predators, and shifting climates. The nickname was not meant as respect, it was a warning. Deathworlders were seen as wild survivors, not trained warriors. To aliens, humans were reckless, undisciplined, and far too fragile to stand against soldiers bred for combat. At the far side of the arena, the alien champion stepped forward. The ground shook slightly under his armored feet. He was enormous, standing nearly 3 meters tall, with skin like dark stone and 4 massive arms, each one ending in claws. His armor gleamed with the silver mark of the peacekeepers, proof that he had won more duels than anyone else in his sector. Whole systems feared his strength. When the champion raised one clawed hand, the audience erupted in cheers. He was not just a fighter, he was a legend. The human did not cheer, did not even smile. He only adjusted the band around his wrist and stared across the sand at his opponent. Calm. Silent. Ready. The announcer's voice echoed through the arena. This is a test of skill, not war. The duel will end when one fighter yields or is unable to continue. Begin. The champion roared, pounding his fists against his chest like a drum. His voice shook the air, full of confidence. He had fought against armored beasts, against creatures with venom and fire. A human was nothing to him. The human did not move. He stood in the middle of the arena, relaxed, hands loose at his sides. The crowd leaned forward. Some shouted, demanding action. Others laughed again, convinced the fight would be over in seconds. The human will fall after the first strike, an alien soldier sneered. But those who watched carefully noticed something different. The human's eyes were sharp, never leaving the champion. His breathing was slow, steady, controlled. There was no fear in his posture, no trembling in his legs. He was calm in a place where others would already be shaking. The champion lowered into a crouch, preparing his charge. Dust swirled around his massive feet. The air grew tense. Then he moved. The alien's body launched forward like a living tank, 4 arms reaching to grab, crush, and end the duel quickly. The ground thundered under each step, cracks forming in the stone. His roar filled the arena as he closed the distance. Still, the human did not move. He waited, almost too long, until the champion was right in front of him. The crowd held its breath. This was the moment they had expected, the moment when the fragile Deathworlder would be crushed, ending the fight in an instant. Some aliens were already smiling, ready to mock the humans again. But in the heartbeat before the champion's claws struck, something unexpected happened. The human moved. It was not a slow step, not a desperate stumble. It was sudden, sharp, and impossibly fast. His body slid sideways, clean and precise, as if he had known exactly where the claws would fall. The champion's massive strike hit nothing but air, smashing into the stone ground with a crash. Gasps erupted through the arena. The human now stood several meters away, balanced, calm, untouched. The dust rose around him, but his eyes never left the champion. Whispers filled the crowd. "Did you see that? He moved too fast." "No, it must have been luck." But some aliens knew it was not luck. Their eyes narrowed as they replayed the movement in their minds. No, the human had read the attack before it happened. His body had reacted faster than most species could even see. The champion growled in frustration, pulling his claws free from the cracked floor. His pride stung. He had expected laughter and quick victory, not this strange dodge. He turned, glaring at the human with a mixture of anger and disbelief. The human only straightened his stance again, calm as before. He spoke no words, gave no explanation. He simply waited. The arena grew quiet. The laughter faded. The aliens who had mocked now leaned forward, their curiosity burning. Something was wrong. Something was different. The duel had only just begun, but already the peacekeepers sensed it. This would not be an easy victory. For the first time, the galaxy began to wonder what a Deathwelder could really do. The alien champion's claws dragged across the cracked stone as he turned, his eyes locked on the human who had somehow slipped away. His heavy breaths echoed in the arena. Never before had he missed so badly against such a small opponent. The crowd began to murmur, confusion replacing their laughter. A few aliens leaned forward in their seats, watching closely. Their words spread like sparks. "No one moves that fast. It must have been a trick. Maybe humans cheat." But the human did not look like a trickster. He stood calm, hands loose, body relaxed, like he had all the time in the world. His eyes never left the champion. He seemed to be studying him, waiting for the next move. The announcer called out again. "Continue the duel." The champion roared, furious. His forearms rose high, his claws glowing faintly with energy from his battle armor. He struck again, this time not with one blow but many. Left arm, right arm, downward slash, sweeping strike. His movements were fast for a creature of his size, fast enough to crush most enemies. But not this time. The human moved again, faster than the eye could follow. One step back, one slide to the side, a lean at the perfect angle. Each strike missed him by a hair. Dust sprayed. Stone shattered. But the human remained untouched. The audience gasped with every dodge. Their cheers had stopped. Now there was only silence broken by crashes of claws against stone and the soft sound of boots moving with precision. The human's speed was not wild. It was controlled, precise, measured. He was not panicking. He was not wasting energy. He seemed to know where each strike would land before it even began. The champion's frustration grew. His armor clanged, his roars shook the air, but nothing touched the human. One peacekeeper officer leaned toward another and whispered, "Do you see it? He is not just fast. He is reading the attacks." The other officer frowned. "Impossible. Humans cannot do that. Their reflexes are too slow." And yet, the proof was right in front of them. The champion swung his lower arms low to sweep the human's legs. At the same time, his upper arms came down to crush his skull. It was a perfect trap, one that had ended dozens of duels. But before the claws met, the human bent low, rolled once across the sand, and came up standing behind the champion. He had moved through a space that lasted less than a heartbeat. The arena gasped as one. The champion spun around, eyes wide, chest heaving. For the first time, he felt a flicker of unease. This was not how the duel was supposed to go. The human tilted his head slightly, as if curious, but he still did not attack. He only stood, calm, breathing slow. This was the strangest part. Normally, an opponent who gained such an advantage would strike back, eager to show strength. But the human had not thrown a single punch. He was not trying to hurt. He was only showing what he could do. The crowd felt it too. Confusion grew. Why wasn't he attacking? Was he mocking the champion? A young alien cadet in the stands whispered, "He is waiting." But for what? The champion roared again, forcing down his unease. He charged, using his full speed now. His claws blurred. His armor's power surged, amplifying his strikes. He attacked with everything he had. The human moved like water. Step to the left. Duck under the arm. Turn sideways as the claws passed by. Slide back at the perfect angle. Every dodge was smooth, every motion efficient. There was no wasted movement. The champion struck so hard that the walls shook, pieces of stone falling from above. But the human kept slipping away. A silence settled over the arena. The crowd no longer mocked. They no longer cheered. They only watched, eyes wide, breath held. One alien soldier muttered, if he wanted, he could have ended this duel already. Another replied, voice low, then why doesn't he? The champion was beginning to wonder the same thing. His arms were heavy now, his breathing rough. Sweat trickled under his armor. He had fought countless enemies before, beasts, machines, warriors from distant stars. But never had he faced one who refused to fight back and still made him feel powerless. The human's eyes gleamed, sharp and focused. He was waiting for something. But what? Finally, the human spoke, his voice calm and steady. You swing too wide. It was the first sound he had made since the duel began. The words carried easily in the silence of the arena. They cut deeper than any weapon. The champion froze for a second, stunned. He realized the human had been studying him the whole time, learning his rhythm, his weakness. The crowd murmured louder now. Respect began to mix with fear. The announcer hesitated, unsure of whether to stop the fight. But the champion raised his claws again, refusing to accept defeat. He would not yield. Yet the audience knew the truth already. The duel was not going as planned. The fragile Deathworlder was not fragile at all. He was fast, precise, and terrifyingly calm. And the aliens who once mocked now sat in silence, wondering what else this human could do. The duel had only just begun, but the peacekeepers were already shaken. The arena had never been so quiet. Moments ago, it was filled with cheers, laughter, and confident voices mocking the human. Now, only the sound of the champion's heavy breathing and the crunch of his armored steps echoed across the floor. Dust hung in the air, drifting through beams of alien light. The human stood calmly, his chest rising and falling in slow rhythm. His clothes were still clean, his body untouched. He had not been scratched once. The alien champion's armor bore cracks from his own wild strikes. The ground beneath him was torn apart by claws and fists that had missed their target again and again. His pride burned hotter than his muscles. For the first time in his long career, he felt something that he never admitted: doubt. The crowd could feel it too. Their laughter was gone. Their arrogance had melted into disbelief. Tens of thousands of aliens leaned forward, staring at the human. Their eyes followed his every move, terrified they might blink and miss something. A peacekeeper general in the high stands leaned toward his aide. His voice was sharp but low. Are the sensors working? The speed does not make sense. The aide checked the holographic display again. Numbers flashed across the screen. They are working, sir. The human's movements, they are above recorded limits for his species. The general frowned. Above, or far above? The aide swallowed. Far above, sir. Whispers spread through the ranks. Soldiers who once mocked now stared, uneasy. Some shifted in their seats, their hands gripping their weapons, though no war was happening. Fear had begun to seep into their bones. The champion growled and slammed his fists together, sending out a metallic ring. He would not be humiliated. He had fought for honor all his life, and he would not lose to a human. He charged again, his claws glowing brighter as the arena's energy amplifiers powered his strikes. His massive body blurred with speed, faster than before. His claws cut through the air, each one deadly enough to crush stone. The human's eyes narrowed. He moved. Step. Slide. Lean. Twist. Every motion was exact, flowing like water through cracks in stone. His body weaved through attacks that should have ended him. Dust sprayed where claws struck, but he was never there. The crowd no longer breathed. The silence was almost unbearable. Every alien, no matter their species, no matter their rank, could only watch in disbelief. A single voice broke the quiet. A young alien cadet whispered, "He hasn't even attacked yet." The words spread like fire. It was true. The human had done nothing but dodge. He had not raised a fist, not thrown a kick, not struck once. He was not trying to win with violence. He was proving something else entirely. The champion roared in frustration, sweat dripping from his forehead. His claws slammed down one after another, each strike missing by inches. His breathing turned ragged. His massive chest rose and fell with the effort. But the human looked the same as when he started. Calm. Balanced. Cold. One peacekeeper commander clenched his jaw. He could not believe what he was seeing. "That is not a soldier," he muttered. "That is something else." The silence of the arena deepened with every passing second. The crowd was no longer an audience, they were witnesses to something they could not explain. Finally, the champion staggered back a step. His arms trembled with fatigue. His chest heaved. His strength, which had crushed so many others, was draining faster than he expected. The human tilted his head, studying him, as though the duel was a puzzle he had already solved. His voice carried across the arena, quiet but clear. "You fight with strength only. But strength without control is nothing." The words cut deep. The champion's face twisted with anger. He lunged forward again, using his last burst of energy. His claws swept in a deadly arc meant to slice the human in half. The human did not flinch. He leaned back, his body moving at the last possible second. The claws sliced the air, missing his chest by a whisper. Then, before the champion could recover, the human stepped sideways, so smoothly it looked like a blur, and ended up behind him again. Gasps filled the arena. Some aliens stood up, unable to stay seated any longer. They had never seen such movement. It was beyond natural. It was something else, something terrifying. The champion froze, his back to the human, knowing he had failed again. His claws hung in the air, useless. The human did not strike. He simply waited, standing just behind him. His silence was heavier than any weapon. The crowd's whispers grew louder, voices full of fear and awe. "What is he? No human should move like that. Are all Deathworlders like this?" The Peacekeeper General's eyes narrowed. His mind was already racing with questions. If one human could do this, how dangerous would they be as an army? How many secrets had the Deathworlders been hiding? The champion turned slowly, his face pale under his armored mask. For the first time in years, he felt his hands tremble. He could not understand how he had lost control so completely. The human's eyes locked onto his. Calm, the alien champion stood in the center of the arena, his chest heaving, his forearms shaking from effort. Cracks spread across the stone floor where his claws had struck again and again. His armor was scratched, dust clung to his skin, and his roars no longer sounded like confidence, they sounded desperate. Across from him, the human still stood calm. His clothes were unmarked, his breathing steady. It was as if he had not been in a fight at all. His eyes were sharp, watching every twitch, every movement of his opponent. The silence of the arena pressed down like a heavy weight. Thousands of aliens stared, their voices caught in their throats. They had expected laughter, a quick match, an easy victory for the Peacekeeper champion. Instead, they were watching something none of them understood. The announcer shifted uncomfortably, his voice hesitant as he spoke. "The duel continues." The champion roared at the words, forcing new energy into his tired limbs. His pride demanded victory. He could not allow himself to be humiliated by a human, not here, not in front of the galaxy. He raised all four arms, energy glowing around his claws. The amplifiers in his armor hummed louder, feeding his strength. Dust lifted from the floor as the air around him shook with power. The crowd gasped. This was his strongest attack, a move forbidden in true war but allowed in duels for spectacle. Many had fallen to it. None had ever stood after it. The champion's roar filled the sky as he leapt, his body slamming down with crushing force. His claws tore across the ground in a cross-shaped strike, splitting the arena floor in 4 directions. The shockwave shook the stands, rattling stone and metal. The attack was so powerful that even the nearest walls cracked. When the dust exploded outward, the audience shielded their eyes. For a moment, The arena was filled with smoke and noise. Many believed it was over. But when the dust began to clear, silence fell once more. The human was not crushed. He was standing behind the champion again, untouched. His movement had been so fast, so precise, that most eyes never saw him escape. To them, it was as if he had vanished and reappeared in a blink. The arena froze. Gasps turned to shocked whispers. Some aliens shook their heads, refusing to believe what they were seeing. Others simply stared, their faces pale. The champion's eyes widened. He spun around, but his movements were too slow. He saw the human standing calmly, only a few steps away, balanced and steady. The champion's heart pounded. He had used everything, his speed, his strength, his amplified armor, and still, he could not touch him. For the first time in his career, he felt true fear. The human tilted his head slightly, studying him like a teacher watching a student fail the same lesson again. His voice was calm, low, but every alien in the arena heard it. Your power is wasted without control. The words struck harder than any blow. The champion growled, but his growl was weaker now. He had no answer. The crowd's whispers grew louder. Peacekeeper soldiers exchanged nervous glances. Commanders frowned, their faces grim. One officer muttered, "If a single human can move like this, what happens if they all can?" Another officer clenched his jaw. "We may have underestimated them." Badly. The champion tried again, but his strikes were slower now, his movements heavy. Every attempt looked desperate. The human's dodges were still perfect, still effortless. The fight no longer looked like a duel. It looked like a predator toying with prey. The audience felt it too. Their silence was no longer just shock. It was fear. Finally, the human moved differently. Not to dodge, not to slip away, but to step closer. The champion swung down, but the human leaned aside and, for the first time, raised his hand. He pressed 2 fingers gently against the champion's armored chest. Just a touch. The champion froze. His body trembled. It was not pain. It was the realization of what that meant. The human could have struck him, could have ended the duel, but chose not to. The arena gasped. The touch was louder than any strike. The human stepped back again, calm, silent, waiting. The champion dropped to one knee, his claws digging into the cracked ground. His pride screamed at him to keep fighting, but his body knew the truth. He could not win. And the crowd knew it too. For the first time in history, a peacekeeper champion had been made powerless without a single strike landing. And the one who did it was from the species they had mocked for being slow and fragile. The general in the high stands rose slowly to his feet, his face unreadable. But his mind was racing. The galaxy had just witnessed something that could not be ignored. The duel was supposed to be friendly. A game. A show of unity. Instead, it had become a warning. The turning point had come. And the peacekeepers finally understood that the death world. The arena stayed silent for several long seconds after the champion fell to one knee. No one moved. No one spoke. The stillness was heavier than any noise. Finally, the announcer's trembling voice broke through. "The duel is over." The words echoed across the stadium, but they sounded small compared to the silence that followed. Thousands of aliens simply sat frozen, trying to understand what they had seen. Their champion, the strongest warrior of the peacekeepers, had been defeated without a single blow landing. And worse, the human had not even tried. The champion looked up at the human standing before him. His pride burned, but his body refused to rise. He had faced Deathworld creatures before, but never had he felt so powerless, so utterly outmatched. He expected arrogance from the human, some gesture of victory, but none came. Instead, the human bowed his head slightly, a gesture of respect. The crowd gasped again. That single action broke the silence like thunder. It was not mockery. It was not triumph. It was something far more dangerous: confidence. The kind of confidence that comes from knowing you could win at any time, but choosing not to. The peacekeeper commanders shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Their whispers carried the same uneasy truth. He could have killed him. He spared him. No, worse, he controlled the entire fight. The general, standing above the rest, clenched his fists. He had thought this duel would be nothing but a spectacle, a show of alien superiority. Instead, it had revealed the one thing the peacekeepers feared most, a predator hidden behind a calm mask. In the lower ranks, soldiers murmured nervously. Some looked at the human with admiration, others with dread. For many of them, respect and fear had merged into the same feeling. The champion slowly lowered his head, placing one hand on his chest. It was a gesture of surrender, but also of acknowledgement. His pride was broken, but not his honor. He had faced an enemy stronger than him, and he had been spared. The human stepped back, his voice steady, carrying across the arena. This duel was never about strength. It was about understanding. The words spread like ripples through the crowd. What did he mean? Understanding of what? The peacekeeper general leaned forward, his eyes narrowing. He had no patience for riddles. But deep inside, he knew the meaning already. Humans were not to be measured by the same scale as other species. They were something else, something unpredictable. The announcer tried to recover his voice. The human has proven his skill. The duel ends in his victory. Cheers did not follow. Instead, the arena remained heavy with tension. Respect hung in the air, sharp and uncomfortable, because it was built on fear. In the stands, alien delegates whispered to one another. A few scribbled frantic notes for their governments. A new calculation had begun. If one human could do this, what could an army of them achieve? Back on the floor, the champion rose to his feet, still unsteady, and turned to face the human. His expression was grim, but there was something new in his eyes, respect. Slowly, he extended one arm forward in salute. The human nodded once, accepting. The crowd stirred again. Even the proud peacekeeper warriors could not ignore what they had witnessed. Their champion had acknowledged the human. The general finally spoke, his voice booming through the arena. This demonstration is concluded. May the galaxy remember this day. But his words did not bring comfort. They sounded more like a warning. As the human left the arena floor, soldiers and delegates alike followed him with their eyes. Some bowed their heads slightly as he passed, not out of command, but out of something deeper. For the first time, the galaxy's strongest enforcers felt the sharp edge of humility. In the private chambers afterward, the peacekeeper commanders argued in hushed voices. This was a mistake. No. It was a revelation. He humiliated us. He taught us. Do you not see? They are dangerous in ways we never imagined. The general cut them off. His face was pale, his voice cold. If humanity chooses war, no strategy we know will hold them. They move too fast. They think differently. They fight as if born for chaos. A long silence followed. No one dared to disagree. One young officer asked, "Then what do we do?" The general stared out at the stars beyond the window. His voice was low, heavy. "We show them respect. And we pray that fear is enough to keep them as allies, not enemies." Meanwhile, across the galaxy, news feeds carried the story. Clips of the duel spread faster than light. Billions of aliens watched the moment when the champion's claws shattered the arena floor, only for the human to appear unharmed behind him. Billions more saw the calm bow, the gentle touch, the effortless victory. Reactions were divided. Some called the human a hero. Others called him a threat. A few whispered the old legends about Deathwelders, the ones that described them not as fragile creatures, but as hunters shaped by the harshest worlds. And for the first time in centuries, those legends no longer sounded like myths. The duel had ended, but its impact was only beginning. Respect had been earned. But respect built on fear was fragile. And in the shadows of the galaxy, leaders began to wonder, what if the humans stopped showing restraint? The duel ended, but the echoes of it did not fade. Across the galaxy, from polished halls of governments to the dim corners of smugglers' dens, the footage replayed on endless loops. The human did not boast. He did not rage. He simply stood calm while defeating the most feared warrior alive. That calm was what unsettled everyone. In the grand chamber of the Peacekeeper Council, leaders gathered around a circular table of black stone. Holoscreens hovered above them, showing still images of the human bowing to the defeated champion. The silence was as heavy here as it had been in the arena. Finally, one counselor broke it. "This is what we feared. The legends were true." Another counselor scoffed, though his voice trembled. "Legends are for children. Humans are fragile. Their world is violent, yes, but they—" "Fragile," the first interrupted. "Did you not see? The human fought as if the champion's claws were wind. He knew every move before it was made." The general, standing at the far end of the chamber, slammed a fist against the table. The sound rang like thunder. "Enough. Do you fools not understand? This was no duel. It was a demonstration." The others turned to him, uneasy. "A demonstration of what?" one asked. The general's jaw tightened. His voice was low, almost a whisper. "Of restraint." The word chilled the chamber. No one responded. They knew he was right. The human had not unleashed full power. He had simply shown just enough for the galaxy to understand. The counselor who had mocked the legends leaned back in his chair, face pale. If that was restraint, what happens if they stop holding back? No one dared to answer. Meanwhile, on the human transport docked above the peacekeeper capital, the warrior sat alone in a small chamber. The duel had left him untouched, yet he looked weary. His hands rested on his knees, still and steady, but his eyes stared at the floor. He heard footsteps behind him. The door hissed open, and a young officer entered. "They're broadcasting the duel everywhere," the officer said softly. "Billions have seen it already." The human gave no reply. The officer hesitated, then asked the question gnawing at him. "Why didn't you finish it? You could have ended him." The human finally lifted his gaze, eyes sharp. His voice was quiet but heavy. "Because the galaxy does not fear death. It fears what it cannot predict." The officer frowned, trying to understand. The human continued, his tone steady. "Kill a champion, and they will send another. Kill enough, and they will send an army. But let them see that I did not need to kill him, that I could have but chose not to, and their minds will never rest again. That fear will live longer than any victory." The officer shivered. He had seen death before. But this was something deeper. A shadow that could spread without a single shot fired. Back in the council chamber, a message arrived. It was marked most restricted. The general opened it, and the holoscreen filled with a grainy recording from decades past. It showed a barren battlefield on a forgotten colony world. Alien soldiers lay broken across the sand. Smoke rose from shattered tanks and ruined aircraft. And in the center of it all, human soldiers moved in perfect coordination, their faces calm even as fire and blood surrounded them. The footage was old, from a time when the galaxy had first tested humanity's strength. The test had ended in silence, buried by treaties and lies. The general turned the screen off, his face grave. "We tried to hide this history. We told ourselves it was exaggerated, that humans were survivors, nothing more. But today proved the truth. They are predators. Born not just to endure, but to conquer." The chamber fell into silence again. Some counselors looked away, ashamed. Others simply stared into the dark. At last, one counselor whispered what they all felt. "If they are predators, then what are we?" No one answered. Far from the capital, on fringe worlds, the whispers had already begun. Merchants in smoke-filled taverns, soldiers in hidden barracks, smugglers on broken ships, everyone repeated the same phrase. "Do not provoke the humans." The legend was no longer a story for children. It was becoming law. On one mining colony, an alien child tugged at his father's sleeve after watching the duel replay. "Father, are the humans dangerous?" The father's face darkened as he turned off the screen. "They are worse than dangerous," he said quietly. "They are patient." Back aboard the human transport, the warrior stood at the viewing window, watching the stars. He knew what the galaxy was now saying. He knew fear would spread faster than any ship. But he also knew fear was fragile. It could unite worlds, or it could drive them to desperation. The officer returned once more, hesitant. "Sir, if they come for us again, if they don't listen, what do we do?" The human did not turn. His eyes remained on the endless night outside. Then, he said, his voice steady as steel, we stop holding back. And in the silent dark beyond the peacekeeper capital, fleets stirred. Governments whispered. Old plans resurfaced. The galaxy had seen the mask slip for one moment, and beneath it they glimpsed the hidden fear. If humanity was truly unleashed, nothing could stop them.